Hey guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at kind of an advanced muzzle flash sort of effect. So let's take a look here. Alright, so we're going to start out by basically taking the clipboard in use and drag it into a new comp. I'm going to go ahead and set this to half quality, just gives us a little more resolution to play with. Get this here. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this so we don't have a bunch of extra. Something like this should be good. Control-Shift-D to cut the clip in half, and we'll just delete this second half. And now I'm just going to go ahead and shorten the comp to about 5 seconds. Okay, that should do it. So first I'm going to go and kind of find the frame. So let me just get this loaded here. Okay. So the frame we're going to probably want the flash to happen is right about here. So what I'm going to start out by doing is I'm just going to grab a muzzle flash. For this case I'm using Action Essentials from Video Copilot. And I'm just going to use, I'll just drag a few of these in here so we have them. But I'm going to just use number 1, see how that looks. Alrighty, so there's the effect. And what I usually start out by doing with these is I'm going to hold down Y and move the anchor point to right where the flash starts. And that way, when I use my rotation tool, I can just rotate it off that point. So hit V to bring up your normal pointer, drag it to about where you want it. Get about the right scale here. I don't like to do these huge. I tend to leave them smaller than what you normally see. Just kind of depends on the effect you're looking for. So that's looking right about how we want it. And this has some smoke in here too, just a little bit. Not a whole lot, but let's go ahead and change that to screen. And so far what we got is something like that. So it's looking pretty good. There are a few things I like to do to these though to change them. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the muzzle flash layer and go up to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, and then Radial Blur. And what this does is this is going to kind of give us a nice circular blur around it. So I'm going to change the type to zoom. And you can kind of adjust this and you can see it kind of blurs it out. But if we turn up the amount, put it right here so it's going forward a little, it just adds a little bit of almost momentum to it. So it's not just a plain, clear flash right there. So this isn't quite lined up, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It's only there for 1 frame. So as long as it's looking pretty good, we should be fine. Now with these, they aren't 3D. But you can shrink them and stretch them to kind of manipulate the angles so it looks right. Something like that looks right to me. So next what we're going to do is basically a flare. So what I like to do is I just like to create a new solid, and we're going to call this flare. And we can go ahead and go up to Effect, make sure you have the layer selected, Video Copilot, Optical Flares. If you don't have optical flares, you can do basically the same thing with the flares inside After Effects. It's just in the effects and presets. It's called, I think, lens flare. Yeah, lens flare. So you can just throw that on there. It's basically the same idea. I like to use optical flares just because it gives us a lot more stuff to play around with. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this to screen right now. Put it on top of the flash. Hit Options. And this is basically where I'm going to choose the preset that I'm going to use. So, let's see here. It's a particular one that I like to use for muzzle flashes. Opposites attract, that's it. So this has kind of a digital look to it. And there are a few things we can change for this particular instance. I'm going to hide some of these bars in the top. Yeah, just those. I usually like to hide that set of them, but we can go back in. That's way too bright, obviously, so I'm going to turn the scale down and bring the brightness up a little bit. That'll give us kind of a nice look to it. Bring the scale up a little bit more. 30. There we go. And I'm actually, just looking at this, I'm going to blow up this muzzle flash a little bit more. And while we're here, so select the flare layer and hit Control-Shift-D on the frame before. And then same on the frame after. And now we just have one frame. So the flare's just there for one frame. So there are a few things we could do. You can see the smoke isn't following the scene quite right. If we wanted to, we could go into position and keyframe that. And then just have it kind of... Obviously, if it was... In some instances, you could always track the shot if you wanted to, using like Mocha or the built-in tracker to After Effects. But just to kind of give it a rough following so the smoke isn't moving all over the place. But so that's what that's going to look like. To give you kind of an idea what it looks like without the flare. Here's without. And here's with. Adds quite a bit to it. So obviously you can create solids like circular solids and go in here. I just like to use that flare though. It's right there. I know where it is. It's exactly what I want. So that's basically what the flares are going to be. I'm going to go ahead and do another one over here. So I'm just using page up and page down to kind of figure out where I want the shot to be. Probably right about here. So let me go over to project and let's see, for this one I'm going to use number 2. Drag it to where we want it. Bring it over, hold down Y. Bring the anchor point over here. Let go of Y. Drag this to where you want it. Scale it down. Get right about the aspect it would be. Hold down W to rotate it. And then, like I said, just change this to screen. And we can do that radio blur on top of this. You can do spin if you want to. You can leave it at spin. I just prefer the zoom effect on here. So there's that. And we're going to just go ahead and... we could just duplicate this flare layer. Stretch it out. Make it one frame. And then move this over. And for this, I'm actually going to change this a little bit. I'm going to turn this a little bit higher. Maybe 35 for the scale. Turn up the brightness a little bit more. Give it a little bit more of a flash. So that's what that's looking like right now. Now, this smoke just seems kind of pretty small to me, so I'm going to go ahead and keyframe the scale. And go ahead a few frames, probably right about here. And I'm just going to blow that up a little bit. So it's going to go out a little bit more, but it'll look quite a bit better in the end, yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and keyframe the opacity. Hit T. And bring that down. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so that's basically it for just the plain muzzle flashes. There's some more things you could do. You could add kind of a distortion around it. So adjustment layer, put it on top of the footage and the muzzle flashes. Actually, let's put it below the muzzle flashes, just on top of the footage. And we're going to go in here and mask out kind of this shape that we would want for a blast. So a little bit. Yeah, something like that. And what we could do is we could just go to Effect, Distort, Turbulent Displace, bring the size down quite a bit, and the amount up. Let's see here. Size should be pretty low, maybe like 4. Yeah. Turn this down to 3. Yeah, something like that. And then we'll hit Control-Shift-D, and then go to the next frame, do the same thing, and that'll just trim it down. So now it's just one frame, and what that does is that just adds that little bit of distortion on there. And then you can hit F on your keyboard. That'll bring up the feather, and just feather it out a little bit. So now we have kind of a distortion right around it. So that's another thing you can do. You can make it last longer if you wanted to be, you know, more obvious. Do the same thing. Just copy that and put it over here for this flash. Maybe make this one a little bit bigger since it's out in the open. Almost like a heat. And that flare is covering up a lot of this. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Yeah. And you, like I said, you could stretch that out if you wanted to make it a little more obvious. But so that's it for the flares. There's more things you could do. You could add light. So I mean, like we could go in here to new solid. Choose just something this a little bit more golden. Something like that. And go into like this actor. And we could mask out this, turn this on, make it for one frame. Hit F to bring up the feather. Change this to screen maybe, yeah. And then hit T to bring up the opacity. Bring that way down. You probably just more want it right on their face, but I mean you can change the lighting on actors. So what this will do is this will basically add almost like that light is on his face for that one frame. So it'll just add a little bit more to it, a little bit more realism. I can actually turn that opacity up a little bit. Yeah, and on the building, you know, you could add it wherever you wanted. So that's another great thing you can do is just kind of take that color and put it around for that frame. Actually, it might look better if we just stretch this out over him. And then hit feather. Feather this out a little bit more. So, yeah. And I mean, you can make it more subtle, you can make it less subtle. Kind of, it's really your preference, what you want to do. I can mess around with this all day and it'd still look pretty similar as far as most people watching it would see. But next, what I like to do is, if we want to add a little bit of slide action on here, he's not using a blowback gun. He's just pretty much acting without any blowback or anything on there. So what you can do is, let me go ahead and turn all these layers off. So we just have our footage. I'm going to duplicate the footage. Hit Control-Shift-D. Go to the next frame, hit Control-Shift-D. It'll basically make one frame of the video. So now I'm going to take this, hit G, it'll select your pen tool, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this part of the frame. And I'm going to hit V to bring back up your normal tool. I'm going to bring this back and then hit Effect, Blur and Sharpen, Directional Blur, and crank this up and then put it in the direction of the slide. What this will do is this will almost make it look like the slide's moving there. You see that? Boom. And you can do that on the front of the slide as well if you wanted to blur. We could probably just duplicate this and move it. Make it a little bit larger. Rotate a little bit. And yeah, that's another thing you can do. So that'll just add a little bit of blur on the front of this slide too. So boom, slide comes back. So with everything else on top of that, you have a pretty convincing effect right here. And then you can do that over here as well, obviously, but the flare is covering that up pretty well, so I think I'll leave it. And then you can actually stretch it out to a few frames. You can make it, you know, farther back here, and then you could do another blurred layer right here. And this would just be like on this part of the slide, so that would just add a little bit more to it. But yeah, that's another thing you can do. Obviously, you could do shell ejections if you really want to take the time to do that. And what I would recommend for that is just using Action Essentials again. They have the section in here of shells. You know, you could throw one of these in here, 45 cal, and basically you would have to track it into your shot. But after all the color correcting and everything, you can get it to look pretty good. I actually have a clip. I did that too on my YouTube page. But yeah, you just kind of get it right about the scale that you'd want it. You kind of find a spot where the rotation is correct, which would be right about here. More like here. And keyframe it. Move it a few more. Turn this up to full resolution. Yeah, so something like that. And what you would do is you would keyframe the position to be right here. A few frames later, you would keyframe the position to be, I don't know where it'd be. Probably out of the frame by that point. And then what you can do is you can use these little arms to stretch the path out and make it kind of the shape that you want. So, you know, in this case, it would be flying up. And you'd have to mask out kind of the actor and stuff, but that's what it would, you know, you could make it look pretty good if you wanted to. You could almost just make it disappear right here. So opacity, the frame before would be 100, and then this would be 0, and then the same at the beginning, it would be 0. Next frame, it would be 100. So, you know, you could make it look pretty good if you wanted to. Add some motion blur on that. So that's the general idea for kind of the muzzle flashes I do. That's looking pretty cool. So bullet hits, that's another thing that's very important. Obviously for this guy you don't even see it, but on this one, if you wanted to add a convincing bullet hit, we'll just use a muzzle flash. We grab a one of these guys again and throw it on here, and I'm gonna just go trim it so we just have the smoke right here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it down to the size that we want it. Rotate it so it's coming off of him. Make them as big as you want them. And that's just a really small one. You can barely see it actually. A little bit better. Can actually probably duplicate it again. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So that adds a little bit of a puff when it hits them. Then obviously, pretty much all we would have left is a nice color grade on here. Adjustment layer, curves. Add some contrast in here. Make it a little bit cooler. And back in here, a little bit darker as well. And I mean, now we have a pretty cool looking effect. Obviously for this sort of thing, you would probably just remove some saturation as well, since it's kind of a war vibe. But yeah. There's some tips. Hopefully you guys learned some stuff. Let me know if you have any questions or anything in the comments, or shoot me a message. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.